The Kickstarter for the Monster Girl in My Closet audiobook will start in November. Hello, YouTube. It's Lion here with Hobbies of a Man once again, and today we are doing another book review. Now, today's book review is going to be over Monster Girl in My Closet by Jamie Hawke. Now, this is published by Double Down Press, and the genres here are harem-lit, fantasy, occult fiction is what Amazon listed it as, and I would classify it as action-adventure. Now, full disclosure, Jamie Hawke sent me this to review. I also beta read this. It probably doesn't really matter, but there it is anyways. So, like I showed you guys at the beginning of this video before I started, book 2 is already out. This is the first one, and the series is called Masters of the Monsterverse, which is kind of a bit of a mouthful, but it kind of works. It makes sense within the context of the story. I've already read book 2 as well, so I kind of know what's going on. This is kind of an interesting book, honestly. It's a little... it's not different from other Jamie Hawke books, I guess, because I haven't read that many. But it's a lot raunchier than the previous 2 books of his that I've reviewed, which is his Dark Knights, which you guys can see right there, and the one he did with Chase Danger, Monster Girl Haven. But let's actually get into the review before I talk about any of that. So, the premise here is that this young visual novelist by the name of Ferris suddenly gets his life turned upside down when he finds a monster girl in his closet. And basically he has to go on the run. And it's not really easy, but his life is on the line, and there's hot monster girls to pick up, so he's gonna make the best of it, right? That's kind of the whole series and the whole idea behind this whole book, so it's really kind of fun. There's definitely very interesting elements of, storytelling here, but it's a very fun, easygoing kind of, hey, there's cool action, hey, there's hot monster girls, hey, let's put it together and then, make a plot line so that you can have both of these things happen at the same time. And it really works really well. So the plot line here is rather good. Basically, there's an initial setup. We get our first monster girl. We kind of have to assimilate her to our world, as well as get Ferris assimilated to the idea that monster girls are real, which is like a dream come true for him because, he has problems with regular women, and suddenly finding someone that is a monster and something that he kind of has wanted for a long time is kind of a blessing for him. And plus, there's elements at play here that basically allow him to have a certain amount of power over them. So definitely power fantasy level stuff, but really good stuff either way. So after that kind of assimilations phase, shit hits the fan, and stuff gets serious. Basically, these hunter things are coming after our first monster girl, who is named Kinara, or Kairop for a little bit, or Crystal as well for a little bit, because names are important in this book. And they're hunting her, and then because she's with Ferris gets in the way, and stuff happens. They have to get out of Dodge. So they're running. They have to go find some answers, but stuff happens between those parts of the story, and then there's a bunch of battles and stuff and set up for the next book and the rest of the book. And I'll try to keep it as spoiler free as possible. It's been a couple weeks since the book came out. Came out on the 1st of October, and book 2 came out just yesterday. So I'm trying to keep it as spoiler free as possible. Yeah, so it's a really enjoyable book. It's really good. It doesn't really stop. It takes a little bit to pick up at first. The introduction is kind of slow, but it works really well. It is cohesive, it's easy to follow, and it's kind of interesting. It's a bit of an examination of a guy that has a life that hasn't really gone anywhere. I mean, he's not sad about his life or he hates his life, but he's very complacent. And this kind of completely out of the blue new experience kind of makes him feel different, makes him kind of change his outlook on life, and it's a very interesting kind of progression, evolution type of thing that really happens here. So even though it's, you know, the trappings of the book are very surface level power fantasy type of stuff, there's a certain element of depth to it which I really enjoy. And yeah, really good nonstop action, really fun book. I would definitely recommend this book just off the funky plot line alone. I also want to mention that there's a lot of fan servicey elements, and I'll talk about it in more detail, but it's basically like action scene, fan service, action scene, fan service, action scene, fan service, action scene while there's fan service. So it's definitely heavy on that. So if you're not really interested in that, maybe this might not be the book for you. So characters now, they're all good, they're all fun. There's a couple characters we get introduced to at the beginning that are not really relevant, but I'll talk about them anyways. So there's Alex and Arturo, and they're kind of Ferris's friends, and they're just kind of bro dudes. They're just like not really frat dudes, or well, one of them kind of is like a frat dude, and the other one's just kind of like a normal guy, and then Ferris is kind of like the weird one out of the three. There's also Ferris's older brother, who I can't remember his name. I think it's Vincent, but he's kind of more like his friends than he is like Ferris. And so Ferris kind of feels alienated by his own friends, even though he still kind of is really close to them in a weird way. It's like kind of that thing where you feel lonely when you're not alone, I guess. But yeah, and Ferris is a really good main character. He's kind. He's pretty relatable, I guess. He's kind of a... If you're a college student and you're having a hard time kind of finding yourself, and you're in a difficult kind of limbo stage in life, I think Ferris will be a relatable character for you. At least he is somewhat to me. I'm not really that deep into that stage. I'm not really feeling lost in the wayside of life, I guess, but there's a certain element of his kind of struggle that I identify with, and I think he's rather relatable in that sense. And he's definitely very horny, and it's really funny, and it kind of plays into the whole story. So, it's realistic, at least. I don't really have anything to say about that. I just wanted to point it out. And yeah, so there's 3 monster girls that we follow, and that are introduced at different intervals in the book, as well as another monster girl that is kind of relevant, but not fully in this book. She becomes more important later on. So our first character is Kinara, or Kairop, or as she's briefly called for a couple scenes, Crystal. And she's a Batgirl. Like, as you guys can see in the cover, she's kind of she's not really a vampire. She's more like a fruit bat kind of Batgirl. I don't know how to explain it really. She's carnivorous and shit, but like, she's not out for blood, if that makes sense. And she's really fun. She's kind of that female character that is rather sexually liberated, if that makes sense. Kind of think Midnight from My Hero Academia. I don't know. She's like a lot of sexual innuendo and a lot of freedom with her sexuality, if that makes sense. It's a little different from the usual female characters that we tend to get. And then we have Jolie, who is the Thunderbird character. She's the cover character of book 2. And she's kind of interesting to me. She's the dangerous, strong, kind of antagonistic female character that we always kind of get in these books. It's not really a tsundere if we're talking anime terms. She's not that, but kind of maybe. And she's kind of interesting to me because she's a Thunderbird and she has darker skin, although we don't know if it's like what level of dark it is, I guess. Like, we don't know if she's Black or Hispanic or Native American or any combination of the previous. It doesn't really matter. She's a monster, not a human. But it's kind of interesting because since she is a Thunderbird and the totem that she was summoned with is made of wood and it looks like Native American totems, I would assume that she would look more Native American, whatever that means, like the phenotype. I'm not really sure how it works, but I'm kind of interested in that. I always think that those kind of subtle representation things are important, and they're a lot more relevant to me than like those over-the-top representation things we get in Hollywood. It's not really relevant to the book, it's just personal things that I find interesting. And then we have Milkshake, who is our last monster girl for this book. She's a kind of crazy fighter, and she's kind of a panda demon thing. A red panda, not a regular Chinese panda. And I like her. I think it's cool that she's not a tanuki. And I like that even though she's a red panda, she's not really like a traditional red panda. Because I feel like a tanuki or red panda would kind of look a lot like Raphtalia, and that's just kind of, that would just kind of look lazy, I guess. Especially in these types of, Haremlit is not really anime based or light novel based or anything like that. The Western section is very different from the Eastern style, but there's a lot of crossover, and it's nice that Jamie, because I don't know how much anime Jamie watches, although I'm sure he watches some because VNs and he talks about anime stuff sometimes. It's nice that Jamie was conscious enough, I guess, maybe, to steer away from that tanuki red panda thing that Raphtalia from Shield Hero is. So, again, that's not really relevant, but I thought it was interesting. And then our last one is Alexis. Alexis? I don't know how to say her name. But she's kind of like the older monster girl that kind of helps Ferris along by teaching him kind of stuff that's relevant. And she's kind of important in terms of world building in this book, but she becomes important as a character in book 2. But I won't spoil much about that. And I like her, although the fact that she's a cougar, like that's the monster animal that she's based on, is kind of on the nose, I think, a little bit. It's kind of funny, but she could have been something else, like, I don't know, a lion or something. Well, that's a little too on the nose as well. Basically, she could have been something that was not a cat, but I think if you're thinking monster girls, a cat girl is always going to come up, and so it was kind of bound to happen. So I'm fine with it. I also like her name a lot. I don't know if that's like a normal Eastern, like, she mentions Seljuk Turks. So we're thinking Middle Eastern. So I don't know if Alexis is a kind of Indian, Middle Eastern name, or if Jamie was just like, I need a name that sounds kind of Asian or Middle Eastern, but that's like kind of easy to say. And then he was just like, okay, Alexis isn't a fun name. Let's make it sound, Eastern. So, I mean, it doesn't really matter. Again, it's one of those things that are interesting. I always think of these things when I'm thinking about characters in things I enjoy. Now, the world building here, it's rather good. It's minimal. I mean, there's some good world building to it, but most of it is just important when it's directly necessary for Ferris to know it. And since we're following Ferris in first person, and Ferris is a fish out of water, so are the readers. And it's kind of interesting. It's usually rather well done, but there's a few moments where I'm just like, oh, come on, man. We really needed a little bit more information here for this to make sense. Kind of rundown of the general world building stuff. There's these tokens or totems that are all kind of worked around animals, and they all are important because Ferris, for some reason, has the ability to use it to summon monster girls or monster people, but he always summons girls for some reason. We don't know why, but we would assume that it's because he's a man, so he's gonna, and he likes women, so he's gonna summon women. That might be the case. I would assume so, and from what I understand, that might be the reason. There's no real reason so far, but that's what I can kind of get from it. And these totems, he has 3 of them. He has a bat totem that his brother gave him for his birthday, which was in the opening scene. He has a Thunderbird totem, and he has a panda totem. And and then that correlates to the 3 girls that he summoned. Alexis was already there, and you find out about her through the book, so I won't really spoil anything else. There's these monster society is based on power. If you're a low-level monster, you are a slave. If you're a high-level monster, you're either a hunter, or you kind of figure a way to be powerful enough to get people to leave you alone. And there's a hunter that's hunting all the girls that are in the book, and Ferris has to deal with him because he wants to protect his monster girls, and that's kind of how it works. But yeah, that's basically it. We're a fish out of water. We only learn the bits that are important. Names are really important, and so monster girls tend to try to protect their names and not say them aloud. They find that Ferris giving them their name when he meets them is kind of weird, and there's some fun, interesting kind of battle dynamics that occur around the names, and it works really well. Now, the art, there is some in this book. There's some art at the end it's kind of like character sheets, I guess. It's like an image, and then it's a little description of what the character's like and their names and stuff. And that's basically it. It's really nice. It's a nice touch. The art is not the same, or the artist is not the same as the one for the covers, as far as I can tell. The quality is different, and the drawing ability of the 2 artists is different. I'm a fan of the covers a bit more than the secondary art from the back, but it's good. I quite enjoy it both ways, so it's fine. Now the fan service, it's quite crazy, honestly. It's a lot. It's very raunchy, and it's kind of heavy. This book is definitely going to have a lot of fan service, so if you're not interested in that, please don't read this. It might be too much for people that are not prepared for it. Can't really recommend another Jamie Hawke book that's like easier going, because I haven't read all of them, but this one is definitely on the heavier side of, raunchiness. Or smut, really. But it's good. I enjoyed it. I thought it was rather interesting. It's kind of weird because sometimes it's, emotionally meaningful, and sometimes it's just like, we have to link so that we don't die. We gotta do it right now. And it's like, okay, sure. It's a little weird, but overall it's really enjoyable. It's fun. It's kind of an interesting way to make the smut have to make sense within the story, instead of just being like, okay, let's derail the story for 20 pages and then do this and then come back to it. It works well to kind of incorporate the smut into the story, which is better than some other books and some other authors do. So I'm fine with that. It's just kind of a preference thing. But it was good. I enjoyed it. Now, what do I rate this? I rate this a 4.5 out of 5. It was definitely good. It definitely had some interesting stuff. But I guess at this point, since I've read it like 3 or 4 times, a lot of the wonder and kind of like luster of it has kind of gone away a little bit. And so, although I really enjoyed it, some of the stuff that would have blown my socks off if I had read this for the first time did not, and that's why my rating is a little bit lower than I would have said otherwise. But a 4.5 out of 5 is a really good score. I'm really happy with this book, and I really enjoyed it a lot. So I hope you guys read it too, and you enjoy it. I definitely recommend this, like I said earlier. And similar titles, I guess Monster Musume and maybe High School DxD. I can't really think of a book that I've read where our main character gets powers directly from a relationship with women, because I was going to say Dragon Slayer from Michael Scott Earl, but that's not really true, because he has to beat them in battle first before he can take their powers. So it's kind of not the same thing. So yeah, Monster Musume or High School DxD, kind of the easy go-to for Monster Girl kind of things. But yeah, that's basically it for me. Thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please leave a like, subscribe, and comment down below. Let me know what you thought. And check out Jamie Hawke's stuff. Please read this book. Leave a review on Amazon or Goodreads or wherever you leave reviews. And enjoy. Also, make sure to check out the audiobook Kickstarter that just started a few days ago for His Dark Knight, and the one for Monster Girl in my closet is going to start soon in November. So do check those out. Thank you guys very much for watching, and see you guys later.